Okay, so join us in Job chapter 15 tonight. You know, if you haven't been with us very long, we've got a couple of kind of unique things happening right now in our studies. We're in two very long books. In the New Testament on Sunday, we're in the Gospel of Luke right now, which is the longest, with 24 chapters of the New Testament, and then we're in the Gospel. This is not a gospel. This is hard news. No, there's also good news in here. But we're in Job here in our midweek service, and this again is one of the longer books of the Old Testament. And so we typically have communion at the end of each of our. Every time we complete a book, we have communion at the end of that book to celebrate a completion of another book of God's Word. So we have been just going through these large sections, and we haven't had a communion service for a while. And at some point here in the midst of the Gospel of Job, you're going to get frustrated with this book. But I have good news for you, because I truly believe that is a part of the point of this book of Job, is to get ourselves frustrated with the opinions of men, with all of these suppositions, all of these guesses of these friends of Job. And so if it's not today, then I think it's going to be next week that you're going to get frustrated. When was the last time you ever heard somebody stand up in the pulpit and say, you're going to get frustrated with the Word of God? But you will. And I tell you, I think it's part of the point. I really do. I believe it's part of the point of the book of Job, that at some point you have to say, enough with these words, enough with these friends' advice. And so maybe tonight one of you will just go, oh, at some point, and I will understand why you did that. So it's okay if you do that. Now, if you do that on Sunday in the book of Luke, it'll be different. So that's only for Job. Okay, all right. So as we pick up Job here in chapter 15, just remember where we're at to come into Job chapter 15. So you just can't lose sight of the fact that we opened up the book with Job going through all of this calamity that God allowed, not because of Job's sin, but because Satan was allowed to challenge Job and to strip him of all of his economy, of all of his family, of all of the good things happening in his life. In fact, it is even so to the point where even his friends and the relationships that he had have been stripped from him. He has his wife, but she's not in here very often. And even she said, why don't you just curse God and die? So on top of losing his economy and losing his children's life, and now he's lost his relationships with those closest to him. And I think I said the last time we were together, I think on top of all of this, that might be the hardest part, is that the actual people that he has left in his life are not together with him. I mean, picture that. What could be worse than losing someone? How about losing somebody but they're still there? Has that happened to anybody here? You know, you've lost the relationship, but yet they're still around. That can be harder. And I tell you, that's what he's facing right here. So look, let's kind of set this up. In chapter 3, after Satan took all of this from him that God allowed, from chapter 3 through 14, we saw each of his friends give their first speech to Job. It was Eliphaz, then Bildad, and then Zophar. And then Job responded to each one of them in kind. Now, as we go here from chapter 15 through chapter 28 or 31, it's going to be that they're going to get their second and their third attempts to give Job advice, and Job responds to what they're saying. So that's the section we're in right now, chapter 15 through 31. And Lord willing, it sounds like we're actually going to take chapter 15 through 28 in just about 3 or 4 sessions altogether. So it's going to go by rather quickly. But have you noticed in the first round of speaking, when each of the friends talked to Job and then Job responded, you've heard of the expression speaking past one another? The idea that somebody's saying something and then the other person, they don't really respond to that. They just say their thing that they're trying to say. And then this person doesn't really respond to that. They just speak what's on their mind. And you're not really addressing each other's points. You just have the thing that you believe is true, and you just got to get that out. Well, that's kind of what's been starting to happen here. In round one of these sets of opinions from his three friends to Job, they gave his opinion. He really didn't have much to respond directly to them because he believed that they were wrong. They were off. They have good intentions. They've been his friends. But their counsel goes off track because they have partial information and then they misapply it. They continually come to Job with the perception that Job is a sinner, he's in sin, that's what's causing his calamity, and they need to get him to repent and come back into the place of God's blessing. That's their position, and they're wrong. And so much of the advice they give him is right. It's good information, but it doesn't apply to his situation, right? So they just don't agree on the fundamental situation that Job is facing. And so therefore, so much of what they're saying to each other is just going, what's the expression, water over a duck's back, right? It's just washing away, and they're not even really taking in what each other are saying. But one of the things you'll find interesting, and it really kind of starts here tonight in chapter 15, is that in desperate situations like this, what does somebody want in a desperate situation? All they really want is, we'll say it this way, all they really want is relationship. All you really want is somebody that will, understand. Somebody that will just, let me give you the opposite to make the point. You don't want the person that's going to come up alongside you and just completely misread you, completely misunderstand you, constantly give you advice that doesn't apply. It doesn't make sense to what you're going through. Hey, I just lost my dog, and, my dog is really special to me. And, dogs won't be in heaven, and dogs aren't that important, and, blah, blah. And you're like, I'm just sharing my heart that, I lost my dog of 15 years or something. And you just want to go on talking about how dogs aren't in heaven and they're not that important. You're missing the point, right? And that's kind of the situation here. All that person wants is just mourn with them, just relate to them. And that's all Job wants. You'll see that as we go into these second speeches of all the friends. Job starts talking about how he just wants somebody to listen to him. He just wants somebody to relate to understand, to just have that true comfort of a friend that will just go through it with them. And that's all he's looking for. And so I really believe in this set of interactions tonight. We're going to get the first two friends, Eliphaz and Bildad, and they're going to give their second speeches to Job tonight. And Job's going to respond to them. And you're going to see some true aspects of what comfort really looks like. And how Job is just longing for that. He's just longing for this kind of simple comfort. And so chapter 15 is the first friend, Eliphaz. It's his second speech, this chapter 15. And I believe it brings out this aspect of true comfort, and that true comfort will speak truthfully. You don't have to lie to somebody to comfort them, right? You can tell somebody the truth, and that can be comforting. And you need that. You need that. You need to be able to comfort somebody with true things, valuable things, weighty things. So take a look at this here as Eliphaz begins his speech for all of chapter 15. It's verse 1 of chapter 15. Then answered Eliphaz the Temanite, and he said, should a wise man utter vain knowledge and fill his belly with the east wind? You're just blowing smoke at me is the idea. Should he reason with unprofitable talk, or with speeches wherewith he can do no good? Yea, you cast off fear. So he's chastising Job. He's saying, Job, you're not acting right. So verse 4, yea, you cast off fear and restrain prayer before God. For your mouth is uttering your iniquity or your sin, and you're choosing the tongue of the crafty, or deceitful is what he means. In verse 6, your own mouth condemns you, and not I, it's not me. Yea, your own lips are testifying against you. So he comes out of the gate, Eliphaz, in his second speech, even more forceful than his first. You may remember the first time Eliphaz talked, he told Job to repent, but now he's coming right out saying, Job, you're a windbag. and you're ignoring your own sinfulness. You're just speaking vain words, and you're not even careful about what you're saying. You're not even considering what you're saying. You're just blurting out things that are not true. So that's Eliphaz's position. You're not even thinking this through anymore. I think too many men have said this to too many women. Oh, you're just being emotional. You're not even thinking straight. What does it? Listen, it doesn't ever help to say that, okay? Even if it's true, it doesn't help to say that. Just make your case, make your position, try to help. But that's basically what he's saying. You're just being emotional. You're being an emotional windbag. You think Job's in a position to listen to him now? but that's the way he's acting. So verse 7, are you the first man that was born? Or were you made before the hills were made? Verse 8, have you heard the secret of God? And do you restrain wisdom to yourself? Verse 9, what knoweth thou that we don't know? What understanding do you have which we don't have? And verse 10, with us are both the gray-headed and the very aged men, much elder than your father. So they're making their case. Well, we're smarter than you are, Job, because we've been around. Verse 11, are the consolations of God small with you? Is there any secret thing with you? Why does your heart carry thee away? And what do your eyes wink at, that you turnest your spirit against God, and let such words go out of your mouth? Did you notice in verse 11, he's saying, as Eliphaz is saying, why are you acting like this, Job? In verse 11, he said, are the consolations of God small with you? What he's saying is, the counsel that me and these other two guys are trying to give you, that is the consolations of God. He's saying, we're here to help you. Is that a small thing to you, that we're here to help? And they've been rough and misapplying information to him, and they act as if they've been just the greatest friends in the world. And yet they haven't really taken the time to consider that they themselves are really not helping his situation. So his claim to Job here is, Job, you're ignoring the wisdom of the ages. Now, what's interesting here is that Eliphaz is making that case right now. Job, you are ignoring the wisdom of the ages, and God himself will also make that same argument later. But here's the difference. Eliphaz is coming from a position of saying, oh, I have common knowledge of my elders, of my fathers, and Eliphaz is wrong, because his common knowledge is saying, Job, you must be in sin, you have to repent, and that's wrong. So, and then God will argue later on that Job didn't accept that he knew everything, what he's doing with God will argue with Job, later, that Job doesn't know everything, but it's from the perspective of God. And God is saying, Job, you just simply don't understand what's happening in the situation. So Eliphaz and God make the same case. Job, you just don't understand what's happening. But Eliphaz is saying, I know because I've been around a few years longer than you. And God says, no, I know because I see everything. And I really do know why this is happening to you. And so there is a case to be made if God himself is the one that says, you just don't understand it, but I do. But if another person says that, that's maybe not the case. So, and this verse 11 really epitomizes everything that Eliphaz is trying to say. Eliphaz is almost blown away that Job isn't accepting their counsel. He's like, is this consolation, in verse 11, is this consolation we're giving you a small thing? You can just picture Eliphaz kind of dumbfounded, like, why aren't you accepting our advice? And he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand why it doesn't apply to Job. And it's a caution for anyone that's trying to counsel and trying to help. Please be careful we don't overjudge the situation. Don't assume we know things when we really don't know things about a situation. And that's exactly why he's having such a struggle here. Let's just continue to verse 14. Eliphaz says in verse 14, what is man that he should be clean? And he which is born of a woman that he should be righteous? Behold, he putteth no trust in his saints, Yea, the heavens are not clean in his sight, in God's sight, that is. How much more abominable and filthy is man, which drinks iniquity like water. So this is very poetic, but Eliphaz is trying to make the case, Job, you are ignoring the universal sinfulness of mankind. You're ignoring that. And Job, you're choosing to turn away from God. We are all universally sinful. That's his case. And of course that's true. But that's not what's causing Job's calamity. If we say that 5 more times, I won't be surprised until we get up to about chapter 30, verse 17. I will show thee, Eliphaz says, I will show thee, hear me, and that which I have seen I will declare to you, which wise men have told from their fathers, and have not hid it, unto whom alone the earth was given, and no stranger passed among them. The wicked man travails with pain all his days. This is the main point he's trying to make, that the wicked will always be in pain. Verse 20, the wicked man travails with pain all his days, and the number of years is hidden to the oppressor. A dreadful sound is in his ears. In prosperity the destroyer shall come unto him. He believes not that he shall return out of darkness, and he is waited for of the sword. He wandereth, he's describing the wicked here, right? He wanders abroad for bread, saying, where is it? He knows that the day of darkness is ready at his hand. Verse 24, trouble and anguish shall make him afraid. They shall prevail against him as a king ready for the battle. For he stretches out his hand against God and stretches himself against the Almighty. He runs upon him, even upon his neck, upon the thick bosses of his bucklers. So he's making the point that wicked men suffer. And Job, that's you. He's making the case that this always happens. The wicked always suffer. And he's making the case, everyone knows this, without exception. Suffering comes to the wicked. Now, is that true? Now, look, there is a universal sowing and reaping, and this is even repeated in the New Testament, that whatever you sow, you will reap. You know, if you're mean to people, that person's probably going to be mean back. There is a universal reckoning of what you're giving out comes back. This is true. But just because someone is wicked, it may not be known until later. So there are many wicked people that don't suffer throughout their life because of their sinful deeds. It doesn't happen until either the end of their life or maybe not until God judges them. So his position here that every time somebody is a wicked sinner, they will suffer for it, is not immediately known. It does not immediately fall out into suffering. And so his case is not valid. And this is why it's very difficult to make any doctrine out of the book of Job, because so much of the book of Job is these opinions of these men that are just, some of it's true and some of it's not. Please be careful to recognize that. These are not verses you want to cross-stitch on a pillow and leave it in your house as great sayings. That's not what this is for. This is designed to show you the frustrating futility of man's wisdom that is partially right at best. Right? That's what it's for. And so let's just continue here. Just another long section, verse 27. Verse 27. Because he covereth his face with his fatness. Again, Eliphaz is describing the wicked ones. He's covering his face with his fatness and makes collops of fat on his flanks. And he dwelleth in desolate cities and in houses which no man inhabiteth, which are ready to become heaps of ruin, that is. He shall not be rich, neither shall his substance continue, neither shall he prolong the perfection thereof upon the earth. He shall not depart out of the darkness. The flame shall dry up his branches, and by the breath of his mouth shall he go away. Let not him that is deceived trust in vanity or emptiness. For vanity shall be his recompense. That's all he's going to get, nothingness or emptiness. In verse 32, it shall be accomplished before his time, and his branch shall not be green, meaning even his descendants will suffer. is what Eliphaz is saying. Verse 33, he shall shake off his unripe grape as a vine, and shall cast off his flower as the olive. For the congregation of hypocrites shall be desolate, and fire shall consume the tabernacles of bribery. Those that bribe people will be consumed. And finally, verse 35, they conceive mischief and bring forth vanity, and their belly prepares deceit. So he's describing the certainty that the wicked will be judged and will come to nothing. Now that's ultimately true. That is ultimately true, but it doesn't happen immediately in life. But the insinuation all through this chapter from Eliphaz is, Job, this is you. This is you. If you choose not to repent of your sin, this is your ultimate end. You're going to stay in this place of desolation and calamity, and you will die in this hopeless way. Now look, if you're applying this to a sinning brother that is living a reprobate, horrible life, there is a moment in time where you have to come with some very hard words and say, listen, the path you're living, it's destruction. You're walking down the path to hell, and I don't want that. And there is a time to apply a message like this, but this isn't it. This doesn't apply to Job. And can you imagine hearing these words? Job, you're going to end up, all of these things, for all of the people that are the bribery, the people that do all of these sins, the hypocrites, the bribers, are going to end up in hell. And the whole time, every time you hear a new word like bribery or hypocrite, you're like, you're saying that's me. I didn't do any of that. And so he's just facing false accusation after false accusation, and none of it's working. So all Job is looking for is just something truthful and meaningful, and it's not here. It's not here. He's going to respond in such a way here in the next chapter, in chapter 16, to make that case. He's going to be saying, look, all I want is a little comfort. And it has to be in truth, and he's not receiving that. So number one, not only does comfort have to be truthful, number two, as we get to the next chapter, comfort should bring hope. That's what Job wants. He wants hope for the future. And he's not getting it from Eliphaz. He's not even getting truth from Eliphaz. And he's looking for truth and comfort. So here in chapter 16, it's chapter 16 and chapter 17 is Job's reply to Eliphaz. So we'll kind of take those two chapters together to look at how Job responds to him. It's chapter 16, verse 1. Then Job answered and said, I've heard many such things. Miserable comforters are you all. That's the way he's viewing all of this. Now remember, this is the second time Eliphaz got to talk, right? So Job's thinking in his head like, well, maybe when I responded to these guys the last time, maybe they would kind of mellow out. And now he's just gotten Eliphaz's second comments where Eliphaz really doubles down and he gets harder on Job. And so Job's initial reaction is, miserable comforters are you. All he's looking for is a little relationship, a little comfort. And he's not getting it. He's not getting it. Verse 3, shall vain words have an end? Or what emboldeneth thee that you should answer? And also, I also could speak as you do, if your soul were in my soul's place. I could heap up words against you and shake my head at you, but I would strengthen you with my mouth, and the moving of my lips would assuage your grief. Do you see what he's saying? Look, if we were in opposite places right now and you were in misery, I would come to you and try to give you comfort. That's all he wants. And now it's literally coming out. He's saying, you guys are not helping me at all. When he says miserable comforters are you, that's very telling. It's almost like a meaner way of saying, guys, I'm just broken and I just need somebody to comfort me. That's really what he's saying. Except he's so worked up right now that he's like, miserable comforters are you. It's the same thought. Do you see past the words of him yelling at Eliphaz, miserable comforters are you? Do you see past that into what he's truly experiencing in his heart? Which is, I'm just broken and I just want some comfort of a friend that would just try to take a minute to understand. That's what he's really saying. That's what he's saying. Verse 6, though I speak, my grief is not assuaged. And though I forbear, And if I forbear speaking, then where is my ease? What am I eased? It's whether I be quiet or I talk, nothing is bringing me comfort or ease. Verse 7. But this poetry in the King James can be very difficult sometimes. Verse 7. But now he hath made me weary. Thou hast made desolate all my company, and you have filled me with wrinkles, which is a witness against me. And my leanness or my skinniness rises up in me, it bears witness to my face. He tears me in his wrath who hates me. He gnashes upon me with his teeth. Mine enemy sharpeneth his eyes against me. They have gaped upon me with their mouth. They've smitten me with their cheek reproachfully. They've gathered themselves together against me. God hath delivered me to the ungodly and turned me over into the hands of the wicked. I was at ease, but he hath broken me asunder. He hath also taken me by my neck and shaken me to pieces and set me up for his mark. Do you get that? Set me up for his mark. He made me the bullseye on the target. That's the mark. Verse 13, his arrows compassed me round about. He cleaves my reins asunder and does not spare. He pours out my gall upon the ground. He breaks me with breach upon breach. He runneth upon me like a giant. So Job is lamenting that just trying to communicate isn't helping. That's his idea. Look, from early in the chapter, verse 6, Verse 6, he says, though I communicate my grief is not assuaged, or if I kept quiet, I'm still not at ease. So that's what he wants, to be assuaged of his grief, to be at comfort, to be at rest. And he's making the point that even in trying to communicate, it's bringing pain to him. He laments the fact that he's being set up like a target for the enemy. I mean, what's worse than being in misery? Having somebody put you in the storefront window just to laugh at you, right? And that's the way he's feeling right now. Guys, I just want a little comfort, and you're making me your target. Verse 15, I've sewed sackcloth on my skin and defiled my horn in the dust. My face is foul with weeping, and on my eyelids is the shadow of death. Not for any injustice in mine hands, also my prayer is pure. So he's declaring that his suffering is not because of his own sin. He maintains that position. And he's right to maintain that position. That's the case. Verse 18, O earth, cover not thou my blood, and let my cry have no place. Also now, behold, my witness is in heaven, and my record is up on high. My friends scorn me, but my eye pours out tears unto God. Oh, that one might plead for a man with God, as a man pleads for his neighbor. When a few years are come, then I shall go the way whence I shall not return. This is so interesting. He gets to these places where, in verse 21, Job longs for the God of heaven to hear and deliver. He gets into these desperate spots where he just starts crying out super true things. Have you noticed that? It's already happened a couple of times. Oh, if there was just a middleman between me and God. And now here's another one where he says in verse 21, oh, that one might plead for a man with God as a man pleads for his neighbor. So he's saying, earth, don't cover up my blood, but let it be heard by God. I want my cry to go to God. Why does he want his cry to go to God? Because no one else is listening. It's one of the few good parts about a hard life, is that we turn to God. We have no choice, and we go to God, and that's his desperate cry at this point. If only God would hear me. As a man pleads for his neighbor, if God would just hear me. I wish I could plead with God. That's what he wants, and that's the right place to go. And he will get that. He will ultimately get that. Now, Job's response continues for the short little chapter 17. And so we'll finish Job's reply here. He says in chapter 17, my breath is corrupt. My days are extinct. The grave is ready for me. Are there not mockers with me? And doth not mine eye continue in their provocation? I'm still here with these guys that just want to scoff at me. Where is my hope? He's getting desperate. I'm done. I give up. There's no help for me here on earth, is what he means. Verse 3, lay down now. Put me in a surety with thee. Who is he that will strike hands with me? Make an agreement, that is. Verse 4, for you have hid their heart from understanding. He's talking to God. God, you, for whatever reason, you've made it so my friends don't understand this, is what he's saying in verse 4. Therefore shalt thou not exalt them. In verse 5, he that speaks flattery to his friends, even the eyes of his children shall fail. So Job begs God to come make a deal with him because his friends just don't understand. So he's, God, you're the only place I have left to go. I hope you understand. And I find it interesting in verse 5, Job sort of justifies telling his friends the blunt truth and not flattering them. Did you see that in verse 5? He that speaks flattery to his friends, even the eyes of his children shall fail. He's making the point that it's okay for me to be this blunt with them. Now, I understand it's not good to flatter people, but we also want to be nice, and there's no nice in most of this book. By the way, do you know the difference between gossip and flattery? Have you ever heard the difference between gossip and flattery? Gossip is saying behind someone's back what you'd never say to their face, right? Flattery is the exact opposite. It's saying to someone's face what you'd never say behind their back. You're saying something that's still not true, but you're just doing it to their face. So think about it. Think about it. Verse 6. Let's keep going. He that made me also a byword of the people. That means like an afterthought. I'm just a nobody. And at aforetime, I was as a tabret. I was something awesome. I was something good. Verse 7, mine eye also is dim by reason of sorrow, and all my members are like a shadow. Upright men shall be astonished at this, and the innocent, or the young children, shall stir up himself against the hypocrite. The righteous also shall hold on his way, and he that hath clean hands shall be stronger and stronger. So Job is saying, look, although I'm fading, I'm trusting that upright people will endure till the end. Although he doesn't understand his own situation, he always mixes these low moments of depression he comes out with these gems of truth every now and again. And that's what he's saying here. Righteous people in verse 9, they will lay hold on this. And he that has clean hands will grow stronger and stronger. You know, when you live an upright life, it will get better. And that's true in the inward man. In fact, Jesus told Paul in the New Testament, though the outward person is perishing, I mean, just look at me 20 years ago and look at me now. The outward person is perishing. But he goes on to say, but the inward can be renewed day by day. And that's true. That's true, that the hope I have now compared to 20 years ago is way more. The joy, the peace, the knowledge of Christ, the blessed assurance that we sung about. All of these things is what continues to grow stronger and stronger in the believer, although the outward continues to fade. We continue in verse 10 to finish off Job's reply here. Verse 10, but as for you all, do you return and come now? For I cannot find one wise man among you. My days are past. My purposes are broken off. Even the thoughts of my heart, meaning my hopes and dreams, they're all gone. Verse 12, they change the night into day. The light is short because of the darkness. If I wait, the grave is my house. I have made my bed in the darkness. I've said to corruption, you're my father, and to the worm, you're my mother and my sister. And where is now my hope? As for my hope, who's going to see it? They shall go down to the bars of the pits when our rest together is in the dust. You, my friends, have not helped. And I find no hope at all. I will simply die without comfort. And that's what he's been trying to say this whole chapter. I just want God to relate to me. I just want to hear an understanding voice. As for you, my friends, you haven't helped at all, so I'm going to die comfortless. Whether he says it in the positive, I want comfort, or whether he says it in the negative, you guys are no comfort at all, you get the gist. You're starting to hear his heart speak through the bitterness, right? That's what he wants, is comfort. That's what he's after. He needs to know that there's a hope in the future. You know, there's so many times that people go to unbelievers and they say, oh, it'll be okay, it'll get better. It may or may not be true. But believers literally can go to each other and say, this will get fixed. This will be done away with one day. We will be in a place of incorruption where those people that have hurt us will no longer have access. The joys that we want to engage in, we will be able to. The closeness that we want to have with Christ and with others, we will have that kind of hope. See, there's something different about the Christian experience that others don't have. You see that, right? And that's when Job is in this desperate situation, that's what he's crying out for. I just want simple comfort of somebody to talk to. And we're going to be overflowing with that. And the church should be a representation of that on earth now. That is part of what the church should be doing, is representing clean, simple relationship with each other. And we want to do that as best we can. So there's Job's response to Eliphaz. Now, we go to chapter 18 and 19 for that matter. Chapter 18 is Bildad's second speech. This is his second attempt to talk to Job. We're going to see if maybe he mellowed out. It didn't happen. Sorry, I couldn't. I tried to linger on that one. I couldn't. No, none of them linger. None of them mellow out. So Bildad's going to get his second shot here in chapter 18, and then Job is going to respond to that. And through Bildad talking to Job, kind of responding about this idea of comfort, you're going to get the impression from Bildad that comfort is offered to the righteous. Okay? Now, Bildad's going to say it in the negative form. Bildad's going to say, because you're unrighteous, because you're living a wicked life, we can't bring you comfort. That's his position. And now look, that is a fair assessment to make, that when somebody's living a reprobate life, they will be deprived of a certain level of comfort. They're not going to have all the blessings that they should have because of their sin. And again, what's the problem with Bildad's position? He's misapplying this to Job. It doesn't apply to Job's situation. So take a look at Bildad's second speech here in chapter 18. They always come out of the gates in the first 2 or 3 verses, and they say like this major insult to each other. It's pretty provocative stuff. Chapter 18, verse 1. Then answered Bildad the Shuhite and said, how long will it be ere you make an end of these words? Mark, and afterwards I will speak. You know what he just said? This is the same as somebody today saying, are you finished? Okay. And then they go on with their diatribe about what they want to say. That's what he just said. Are you done yet? Like with that look on his face. Okay? So verse 3, wherefore why are we counted as beasts and reputed as vile in your sight? So that's how he opens up his second message to Job. Are you finished, Job? Okay. Why are you treating me like an animal, Job? That's how he starts the message. Why are you ignoring wisdom? Okay, verse 4. He tears himself in his anger. Shall the earth be forsaken for you, Job? And shall the rock be moved out of its place? Job, you've given up on wisdom. You won't listen to us anymore, Job. You have completely given up on wisdom. That's what he's trying to say to him. And so in verse 4, he's saying, look, you've given up on wisdom. Should we just give up on the entire earth, Job? If you won't even listen to wisdom, maybe we should just give up on thinking gravity works. Maybe we should give up on thinking anything, Job. That's how frustrated he is that Job isn't receiving his counsel. But Job shouldn't receive his counsel because it's misplaced. Verse 5, yea, the light of the wicked shall be put out eventually, and the spark of his fire shall not shine. The light shall be dark in his tabernacle, and his candle shall be put out with him. The steps of his strength shall be straightened, and his own counsel shall cast him down. For he is cast into a net by his own feet, and he walks upon a snare to trap him. Verse 9, the jinn shall take him by the heel, and the robber shall prevail against him. The snare is laid for him in the ground, and a trap for him is laid in the path or in the way. So Bildad's conclusion is that Job is being confirmed in his wickedness because he's verbally denying his wickedness. That's the trap that Bildad's going on talking about here. He's saying, look, you have trapped yourself in your own words because you're denying any of this sin. You're entrapped in your own situation. That's his conclusion. That Bildad is done. He's like, oh, there you go. You're denying your own sin. What else can I say? Verse 11, terrors shall make him afraid on every side. This is what Bildad believes about Job. And shall drive him to his feet. His strength shall be hunger-bitten, and destruction shall be ready at his side. It shall devour the strength of his skin. Even the firstborn of death shall devour his strength. His confidence shall be rooted out of his tabernacle, and it shall bring him to the king of terrors. It shall dwell in his tabernacle, because it is none of his. Brimstone shall be scattered upon his place or his house. His roots shall be dried up beneath, and above shall his branch be cut off. So Bildad is describing the miserable life of the wicked. And that's what he believes Job is, right? Job, you've refused to repent. And so by denying that you are wicked, Job, this is the life that you're bound to live. There's no way around it, is what he's saying. Since you're wicked, there is no comfort. That's his position. And it's not applicable to Job. Verse 17. His remembrance shall perish from the earth, and he shall have no name in the street. He shall be driven from light into darkness and chased out of the world. He shall neither have son nor nephew among his people, nor any remaining in his dwelling. They shall come after him. They that come after him shall be astonished at his day, as they that went before were affrighted. Surely such are the dwellings of the wicked, and this is the place of him that knows not God. So usually they say their premise statement first, and then they give all the poetry. In this case, Bildad did the opposite. He gave all this poetry about a wicked person's life, just some generic wicked person. And then in the end, verse 21, he gives this big punchline that says, this is you, Job. This is you. Surely such are the dwellings of the wicked, and this is the place of him that knows not God. So Bildad is just describing now the end of the wicked person. Oh, and by the way, this is you, Job. And so his whole point is the wicked person will have no comfort in life, and they will come to the end of their life in destruction. And it's so unfortunate because all of these guys are strengthening their presuppositions. They have ideas in their mind of what caused Job to be like this. And you'll see as they get into their second and even into their third speeches, they start assuming even more and more about Job. Here's one at the end of chapter 18 where he says, this is the case for everyone that doesn't know God. He's going so far as to say, now, Job, you just completely misunderstand God. You don't even know who he is. We make jokes. We make jokes like that. I was at a pastor's conference a couple of months ago up to the Finger Lakes, New York, and just a real good guy up there. He's an assistant pastor at Calvary Chapel, Finger Lakes, and as he was checking everybody in, he's kind of a real rugged guy, just like the perfect uncle kind of guy, just real rugged. Like, get your stuff, go to your room, it's upstairs over there. He's just doing all this stuff. But he has this joke he always tells, where if you're talking to him about anything, you could say anything slightly off or just something, it could be like, would you like the turkey or the ham for dinner? And if you choose the ham and he likes the turkey, and you say, oh, give me the ham, he'll just look at you and he'll say, are you sure you're even saved? This is a pastor's conference, by the way, and he's like, are you sure you're even saved? But it's funny when it's joking like that. But these guys are saying it to Job, and they mean it. Like, are you sure you're even saved? Has that ever happened to you where somebody just outright quit? You could have just, I struggle with this about God. Are you sure you're even saved? Can you imagine? That's the accusation now. They're strengthening all of these opinions of theirs to the extent where they're like, I don't even know if you're saved, Job. I don't even know if you truly know God. So try that on your good Christian friend sometime. Next time they say something goofy, just look at them and say, are you sure you're even saved? It's pretty funny. It works well. So Bildad now says, look, comfort doesn't come unless you're righteous. And Job's like, I'm telling you, man, I didn't do anything to deserve this. So let's just do chapter 19. It's Job's response to him, and that will finish us out here for tonight. So Job chapter 19, there's another aspect of comfort here. It's such a joy that so many times when we get Job's responses, he brings out these nuggets of truth. It's almost like he gets so desperate that he has nothing else to think about. He's down to just a few things to even think about, and these true things just bubble up. And it happens again in chapter 19. It's pretty remarkable. And you'll see it as we get towards the end of chapter 19. It just comes out with these powerful spiritual points every now and again. So chapter 19, regarding comfort, we're going to see that another aspect of comfort is that it comes from eternal relationship with God through Jesus Christ. That's the only place to find it. And we will see that here in chapter 19. So here's Job's response to Bildad's second speech in chapter 19. It's verse 1. Then Job answered and said, how long will you vex my soul and break me in pieces with these words? These 10 times have you reproached me. And 10 times throughout the entirety of the Bible is just an expression that means repetitively or completely. These 10 times have you reproached me. You're not ashamed that you make yourself strange to me. You're acting like you're not even my friend. Verse 4, and be it indeed that I have erred, mine error remains with me. If indeed you will magnify yourselves against me and plead against me, then plead against me my reproach. Verse 6, know now that God has overthrown me and has compassed me with his net. He's really seeing some true things here. So does it bother you that you're breaking friendship with me, guys? That's what he says. Does it bother you that you're acting like strangers that don't even care for the person involved in the situation? But then finally, verse 6, he begins to bring out the truth here. He says that it's God that's done this to me. It's not my own sin. He's right, at least to the aspect that this isn't caused from his own sin. His sin's not even caused from other people's sin. His sin is an otherworldly problem, and he's absolutely right about that. It wasn't God. God allowed it, though, but it was Satan. And so verse 7, behold, I cry out of wrong, but I am not heard. I cry aloud, but there's no judgment. He hath fenced up my way that I cannot pass, and he has set darkness in my paths. He stripped me of my glory and taken the crown from my head. Job's talking about the Lord here. In verse 10, he's destroyed me on every side. I'm gone. And my hope has he removed like a tree. He's also kindled his wrath against me, and he counts me unto him as one of his enemies. His troops come together and raise up their way against me and encamp round about my tabernacle. So look, God has stripped me of everything, and he's given me no way out of this. Now he's not even responding to Bildad. He's responding saying, look, this is God that is putting me through this, Bildad. Don't you see that? In verse 13, he hath put my brethren far from me. There it is, by the way. I want to make sure you see that verse, because I've made a point of this to say that I believe, and this is one of the verses that highlights that I really believe that this is, at this point, one of his greatest pains. Not just that he's lost family and lost other loved ones, but that he's lost these guys that are right in front of him. And there it is, even in verse 13. He hath put my brethren far from me, and mine acquaintances are truly estranged from me. My kinfolk have failed, and my familiar friends have forgotten me. They that dwell in mine house and my maids count me like a stranger. I'm an alien to them, or a foreigner. I called my servant, and he gave me no answer. I entreated him with my mouth. My breath is strange to my wife. And you know what he's saying. He's saying, there's no intimacy anymore. That's gone. Though I entreated for my children's sake of mine own body. Yea, young children despise me. I arose, and they spoke against me. All my inward friends abhorred me, and they whom I loved are turned against me. My bone cleaves to my skin and to my flesh, and I am escaped with the skin of my teeth. The skin of my teeth, it's always one of these things we still use it in today's language. That's why it's always brought up. But there is no clear indication what this means in the Hebrew, because this idiom is only used a handful of times in all of Hebrew literature. It either means I have literally lost my teeth through this calamity, and I just have my gums left, or it means that I have escaped narrowly by biting my way forward. Take your pick. But the idea is I've barely made it, okay, in any case. But what do you see in all of these verses? Every one of these verses, Job is saying, what I miss most is relationships. That's what I'm missing. Have you heard Job say, oh, if I only had my cows back that I could still buy and sell? Hasn't said that once. Hasn't even got close to talking like that. But this is what he's thinking about. The people and the relationships. That really should be a motivator for us in life right now, right? Like even the rest of this week, just to go back to the places that we're going to go back to and remember that the stuff that's there, the paperwork that's on your desk, or the items that you need to pick up and deal with all week long mean nothing compared to the people that are sitting right there. That's the ones you'll think about. That's the items that you'll think about, is those people. And that's what's on his mind, those people. Verse 21, he's really directing this towards God more than Bildad. And even here in verse 21, he says, have pity upon me, have pity upon me. Now he's talking to his friends. Now I look stupid. Verse 21, he really is now directing this to his friends. Have pity upon me, O ye my friends, for the hand of God has touched me. Why do you persecute me as God, and are not satisfied with my flesh? My flesh has already, been diseased and calamity and boils and everything else. Isn't that enough for you? Is what he's saying. Job just wants simple pity. If you can't comfort me, at least just give me simple pity. Verse 23, and here's where it gets, he just gets so desperate. You see the word "oh" at the beginning of verse 23. Oh, that Every time Job cries out with an, oh, that blah, 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 it's him in this desperate moment. And it's like these true things just come shooting out in these most desperate of the moments. And it happens again right here. Oh, that my words were now written. Oh, that they were printed in a book, that they were graven with an iron pen and lead in the rocks forever. Job, welcome to heaven. Sign right here. Okay, let me take you over here to your house in heaven. Job's first day in heaven. And then, okay, now that you got your house, we're going to go meet the Lord. And he goes up to meet the Lord, and the first things out of the Lord's mouth is, oh, and by the way, I did write it in a book. I did pass it down to everybody because I did want them to learn about your situation. But he's crying out. What is he saying, though, when he's saying, oh, that these things were written in a book? He's saying, look, if what's happening to me was written down in a permanent way, then people could review my story and then they would understand. He's saying, I don't want to die without my story being given to somebody else, because then maybe they'll understand the truth of what's happening. And that's the challenge for us today. Let us be better than Eliphaz and Bildad and Zophar. Let us take the time to really understand the intricacies of why somebody suffers. And that it could be their own sin, it could be from somebody else's sin, or it could be a supernatural thing. There could be many reasons. So there are so many reasons why we have such a better opportunity to counsel and comfort than these guys gave to Job. And so he's right. Let us learn from what's been written down here so that we can be better helpers and better counselors. His friends don't understand, so he's dying for this story to be written down so that maybe somebody else would read it and maybe they'll understand my situation. But even in that expression of I just want my story to be written down permanently, even in this expression, he's saying, even if I'm not there to experience it, I just want somebody to hear my story and be able to relate with me. I just want somebody else to hear what's happening to me and say, oh, Job, the Lord is good. He's going to help you. And we can do that. We know that. We already know the end from the beginning. We already know what's going to happen to Job. But even in the expression of I want this written down, he's saying, I just want somebody to truly understand me. That's what he's saying. In verse 25, it gets even better. In verse 25, for I know that my Redeemer lives, and that he shall stand in the latter day upon the earth, no less. In verse 26, and though after my skin worms will destroy my body, yet in my flesh I shall see God. Whom I shall see for myself, and mine eyes shall behold, and not another. It'll be me. Though my reins be consumed within me. In these most desperate times, he cries out some of the best things in this whole book. He's saying, I know I will be resurrected. I will stand before God. My Redeemer. Why does he use the term Redeemer? A Redeemer means something that is in a place of trouble, a place of not good, dirt, whatever, and you are, when you picture Redeemer, would you just picture just taking somebody by the head and just going, nope, you're over here, and then dusting them off. You're cleaned up. That's redemption, taking from this place of bleh to clean them off. That's redemption. And that's the picture of what he's saying. I am in this place of death and destruction and dirt and chaos and calamity, and I just need to be redeemed out of it. And he has that hope that I know my Redeemer lives. Oh, his hope wavers back and forth, and yet he's able to bring himself to these moments of clarity like this. What a joy. What a joy. And this is the fight of our minds, guys, that when we get into the I'll call it the fog of war, when we get into the fog of the calamity and of the trouble and just people are throwing lies at you or their opinions at you, and you Your head is swimming with all of the stuff. We need to fight to bring our minds to these places where we say, I just need to hear from the Lord right now. I just need to quiet all of the stuff, and I just need to hear the Lord. And I know one day he's going to redeem me out of this. Maybe it'll be in this world. Maybe it'll be in that world to come, but it's going to happen. Now, finally, verse 28. But you should say, why persecute we him? Job is saying this to his friends. You should say, why are we persecuting him? Seeing the root of the matter is found in me. Be ye afraid of the sword, for wrath brings the punishments of the sword, that ye may know that there is judgment. So Job is warning his friends to be ready for God's judgment when God comes back. He just said, my Redeemer lives, and I will see my Redeemer as he comes back to earth. And now he ends with 2 verses of warning to his friends. You guys better get ready for him. Job's fighting back at this point, saying that I know my Redeemer lives. What about you? What about you? Are you concerned? You should be. So desperate situations often drive us to the lowest common denominators. And we come up with some of these nuggets of truth like Job has been coming up with. And Job he's simply looking for comfort. Do you hear that coming out of him in these chapters? I just want simple comfort. You know, I think in God's grace, if we offer nothing to somebody else that's going through a hard time, would you just start with comfort? Right? You can work through the details. You can get the truth. The truth will come out as things are talked about. But would we just offer them comfort? Right? Because it's true that nobody cares what you know unless they know that you care. That is a true expression. It's not biblical, but it's true. Okay? That people will not care to listen to what you know unless they know that you care. So give people your ear. Let them talk it out. Doesn't mean you have to agree with lies, but it means you have to let them know, I want to work through this with you. I want to listen. And then truly listen, and don't just respond with what we want to say, but ask for God's clarity. So through all of this, looking for comfort. Comfort has to be truthful. It has to bring a hope for the future. That has to be there. Comfort will only be offered to the righteous. This is true. This is true. The wicked will not get it. But ultimately, comfort only comes from an eternal relationship with Christ. And Job always gets himself into these desperate moments long enough that he sees it. That he sees what I really need is a relationship with my God. And what's so great is he's going to get it. By the end of this book, we're going to see it. That he will get that opportunity. So, praise God. Let's close.